Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another exciting Saturday morning Build the Back to the Future DeLorean. This is issue number 3, and this week we are going to be attaching the alternator and some brackets and the oil dipstick. I know I said last week that I thought we were on to the pulleys, but that's actually next week still. In the meantime, though, you may notice I have gone ahead and put some wire in the fuel lines, and that is starting to look a little better. I may have to rebend those some, but I think that's a lot better than those loops across the top. That all said, let's get started. This one should actually be a quick build. Again, I know I said that last week. I said that that was going to be fast, and then it was down to those fiddly little things. On the other hand, this really is just a handful of parts and a few screws, so I don't think it will be too bad. There's quite a bit of die cast in here. I thought these were going to be plastic bits. We have DM screws. This is plastic, but these two brackets are die cast. This is plastic. And we have AM screws, so all metal screws here. Oh, nope, there's some AP screws as well. The oil dipstick. And the alternator in two pieces. It's funny, it's clearly the alternator. It says alternator in the actual instructions, but on the part list sheet it says that it's the distributor. I don't know, maybe in the UK they refer to alternators as distributors and they call distributors something else entirely. I don't know. Or it's a misprint, you know, entirely possible. So, let's get a moving. Step 1 is take some AM screws and bolt the long bracket here to the side of the engine. So we got some AM screws, and we're going to be attaching this bracket with these two screws to the side of the engine right along here. So that's going to go right here. Hopefully I don't break anything along the way. I did end up gluing in one of those fuel injector elements because with a wire in it, it actually, it was basically self-removing. The wire adds just enough stiffness that I couldn't get the flex right in a way that it was happy with. So I did glue it in because it kept twisting. And it's better now. Tiny little dab, just the tiniest drop of super glue. And then I used a piece of wire to sort of coat, and it went from there. So we got 2 AM screws holding this bracket, if my hands will cooperate. Tighten them down a little bit at a time each, until it sits nicely. So, things are going on, obviously, in the United States. I'm not going to get into it. It's crazy. It's all crazy. There's a bunch of crazy people. I can't help that there's a bunch of crazy people, but there are. So, next step is we are going to put the alternator together, and it is going to go such that the pins are out. So the alternator is two pieces. This is one end, and there's a center rod and a pin. This is the other end. It's got a hole and a receiving end. There's also a pin on the inside of the front. And they just snap together, I guess. I don't think there's any keying. Nope. So it's on me to make sure it actually stays aligned. But those two triangles at the top need to stay aligned so it can actually be attached. And that gets held on with one AP screw to start with. And then I think we're going to get 2 more AP screws holding it onto the bracket itself. So I'll get 3 of those out now. Start out by putting this together with an AP screw. And it just screws in from the back side. And like I said, there's really nothing keeping the 2 halves of this from rotating. Even with the screw pretty well secured, it actually still twists a little bit. Which maybe is good. So, this then goes on the small round piece of that bracket I just installed and gets secured with an AP screw. And then another AP screw goes on the back side in that same tube. And if I lined things up well enough, yes I did, it all just screws together. No problem. Good. That was relatively painless. Next up, we're going to need an AM screw, and we're going to attach the other bracket that holds the alternator on. Now this one's kind of interesting. It kind of just pins through from the front of the engine to that pin that was sticking out. So that's the piece. That hole is going to just take that smaller pin that was on the front of the alternator, and then it gets screwed on from the other side. This just gives it some support from the other side. And if I had lined this up better, it would work better. So now I got to loosen these other screws a little bit, because I didn't think about this. Because while yes, the alternator fit on the bracket, it can pivot on that bracket, and this is what actually keeps it aligned. Would have been nice if they'd said something like, oh, don't screw the man all the way, but since I hardly read the words, it might not have helped. Okay, so the bracket now fits, goes in with an AM screw. This is going to actually fit the location for the alternator, and then I will tighten those other screws up again. So there's a tip for you guys if you're doing this yourself. Don't crank the alternator way down, because you might have to readjust it. If you can see here, that fits an angle that this had to be at. So now I've got to tighten these down again. I didn't loosen them up a whole lot, just enough to let me budge this without flexing the plastic. And there we go. And that other piece will keep it from shaking too, because it's kind of fixed. It can't really do much since that part can't slide. Now, you can see there's a chamfer in there on a real engine. That would be a bit of a slip. That's a cutout so that you could adjust the position of this to get the belt tensioned and loosened. So there's a case if the real engine would actually be slightly different. Next step, and we're getting close to the end, like I say, this is a quick one, is to take the dipstick here and secure it. This is going on the other side away from the alternator. It fits through the manifold and down into a little point in here. I'm probably going to need my tweezers to actually get this in. Yeah, that sure is a super loose fit. There we go. A little bit of color there. And the last two steps are essentially the same. It's to fit two brackets on the transmission at either side. This is using those DM screws they gave me. So we'll just fish a bunch of those out now. And starting on the same side as the dipstick, why not? Let's see. These are mirror image pieces. There's two of them. And you want the ring part up and the bracket towards the transmission, because that's where it's attaching. Start with one screw. Get that part way in so this is still free to swing, so I can actually get the alignment on the other. Okay, so that's one side installed here. The other side is just a mirror image. We'll do that quickly. Okay, and that's it. That's two mounts attached so that can bolt on, I assume, to the chassis. Because I don't know how else this would attach to the chassis. Nah, somewhere. Yeah, should be. I don't know, I guess. We'll find out later, huh? So. That's what the completed build should look like. That's our assembly so far. Looks like we're moving along. Next week we will be installing pulleys on the front here. If you want to watch that, you can subscribe by clicking on the cat. If you've missed any videos, you can go back and watch them by checking out that playlist. And we will be starting up the Actel 1 Ghostbusters vehicle again this week because I finally got more parts in, along with another surprise. So I'll put that up for you too. Have a good one, guys.